Fertility Diaries. Two women share their challenging paths to motherhood. Women are taught in school that it's easy to fall pregnant from young, but this isn't always the case, and we're proof of that. Despite what the Hallmark cards would have you believe, Mother's Day isn't always filled with glossy helium balloons and breakfast in bed. For many women, the annual celebration can serve as a reminder of heartbreak, absent parents, or what could have been dreams. Despite fertility issues affecting 1 in 6 Australian couples, for many women it's a topic still shrouded in stigma. It can be heartbreaking to watch patients who have gone for many years without a diagnosis, and by the time I see them, they're racing against the clock to get pregnant. Early diagnosis and treatment is so critical, explains Dr. Genya Rosen from leading fertility clinic Genia. Hoping to break the stigma and help make women feel less alone this Mother's Day, 2 women open up about their long road to motherhood after being diagnosed with endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. Letitia's story. Letitia Camello, now 31, grew up hearing that the painful periods she had been experiencing since she was 14 was just the way it is, but deep down she knew something wasn't quite right. Unfortunately, Camello's story is an all too familiar one as more and more women speak about their journey with undiagnosed endometriosis. And as Letitia found out, it would have much more impact on her future plans than she ever would have realized. No matter how many people told me that the pain was just normal, that didn't sit right with me. I know my own body, she said. Thinking back, there are so many things that make sense now in addition to the abdominal pain. Like not being able to sit cross-legged, my IBS, the pain down the back of my leg and pain during and after intercourse, dyspareunia. I'm not going crazy, there was a reason for all of it. The teacher decided to take matters into her own hands, but that didn't mean it was a smooth road to diagnosis. Her decision to advocate for herself over many years saw her sit in front of an army of 5 gynecologists, pelvic floor physios, psychologists, psychosexual practitioners, and many GPS who couldn't give her answers. She had resigned herself to a life of pain after being told many times to just get on with it. In 2015, after a chance meeting at a cousin's wedding, Letitia started dating Travis, now 34. By 2017 they were engaged, after he popped the question during a European getaway. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't let me carry the backpack all day, recalls Letitia. After they were married in 2021, Letitia and Travis decided it was time to start trying for a family. By August they were pregnant, however. Sadly the couple experienced a devastating loss in that September. A missed miscarriage was diagnosed at 8 weeks. Their baby had stopped growing at 5 weeks. I was devastated. Although we hadn't told anyone, it still felt real and was a really hard time for us both. Letitia underwent a D&C, dilatation and curettage, but it wasn't until later that her endometriosis would be discovered. After the couple recovered from their loss, they decided to start trying again. This time it was 8 months without any success, and Letitia noticed her period pain was getting considerably worse. I did so much research, trying to get to the bottom of what was going on, but I knew that it was time to see a fertility specialist, so I booked an appointment. To ensure the couple didn't waste any more time, Dr. Rosen ordered a number of tests prior to their first appointment, including a high-COSY, hysterosalpingo contrast sonography, which was what actually enabled the diagnosis of Letitia's endometriosis. She also helped explain an extremely low anti-Müllerian hormone, AMH, test result, which measures a woman's egg reserve, saying that endometriosis can have an impact on the results and we may need to move a bit quicker than someone with normal reserve. But at the end of the day, it only takes 1 good egg. Although I was grateful for a diagnosis, I was also in a bit of shock when provided what options we had on the table. I went down a research spiral, joined Facebook groups and other forums. Ultimately, Letitia decided to proceed with a laparoscopy in June 2023. The 2.5-hour procedure identified severe deep infiltrating endometriosis. There was no question. 17 tissue samples were taken and 14 of those had endo. It was across multiple areas: left uterosacral ligament, pouch of Douglas, right and left pelvic side wall and bladder peritoneum. Mum and I are really close. She lost her mum when she was 10 years old, so knows how important mums are in your life. She was there holding my hand for all of it. She's told me she feels a bit responsible for me not having answers sooner, but how could she have known? None of us are told about this, and so many women are dismissed when they seek medical care anyway. Letitia's pain subsided after her second period post-procedure, and at the 6-week follow-up appointment they were sitting down with Dr. Rosen, who gave them the all-clear to start trying naturally again. Letitia and Travis cancelled their 4-month follow-up appointment after just 3 months, receiving the greatest news of all: they were pregnant again. We're due May 15th, so it might just be a Mother's Day baby surprise. What we do know for sure is that little bub has a full head of dark hair just like both of us. We can't wait to meet our beautiful bub. Letitia has been passionate about telling her story to ensure other women know they're not alone. Her journey to motherhood has been a bumpy one and shows that awareness and advocacy for your own health journey is so important and can have a significant impact on the outcome. Women are taught in school that it's easy to fall pregnant from young, but this isn't always the case, and we're proof of that. If I'd known all of this, we would have started trying earlier. Shannon's story. After coming off the pill at the age of 19, Shannon Werner, now 33, didn't get a period for 8 months. This should have been a sign that something wasn't right, especially after experiencing irregular periods since she started menstruating, yet her GP at the time told her it was just her body adjusting and that she could address it later when she was looking to start a family. When you speak with a number of medical professionals who all dismiss it as a non-issue, you start believing it. It definitely put me off seeing a doctor to really get to the bottom of what was going on, says Werner. Shannon is no stranger to healthcare either, practicing as a cardiology nurse in Richmond. It's a story so many women have encountered and continue to experience when it comes to PCOS. And because Shannon didn't display any of the other usual symptoms such as weight gain and excess facial hair, the silent medical condition was passed off as something to ignore. Fast forward 6 years to 2017, at the age of 25 Shannon was introduced to Carl through friends at their engagement party. And in 2020 they were engaged. It was a COVID engagement. We managed to get up to Byron for Christmas and Carl popped the question. We thought the pandemic was done and dusted, so planned to marry in November 2021. That wasn't to be, especially with family over in the UK and interstate, but they finally married in March 2022 at a beautiful winery in Mount Maidstone. We started talking about starting a family pretty soon after getting married, as Carl was already 6 years older than me. We were really keen to get started. Shannon had still been experiencing very irregular periods, between 7 to 12-week cycles. This time she hunted down a great women's health-focused GP who had experience in ovulation disorders. What a difference the right doctor makes. The GP took her time to do blood tests and ultrasounds and talk about her symptoms. The anti-Müllerian hormone, AMH, test came back extremely high, in the 80s, so all signs were pointing to PCOS. She wasted no time getting a referral to a fertility specialist. In September of 2022, the Preston-based couple sat down with Dr. Rosen to talk through their options. Medication was their first port of call. It was as if my period knew it needed to be on time for once in my life. I was prescribed letrozole and couldn't start until the first day of my next period, and guess what? It came that next day. Ultrasounds were conducted to track the follicle development, Date nights were scheduled and then a pregnancy test 2 weeks later. This was the reality of life for the next 8 months for Shannon and Carl. Not as romantic as we're led to believe. As each month went on, it got harder and harder to stay positive. We had already been trying for 7 months before the treatment, and this went on for another 8 months. Friends were announcing pregnancies, and I was so torn between being happy for them and sad for us. It was a really rough time. Shannon and Carl scheduled another appointment with Dr. Rosen to talk about the next steps. Knowing there is more than one path to conceiving, she encouraged them to hang in there instead of moving on to IVF. What's important, given everyone is unique, she explained, is being educated on the various options available to patients. It was the Friday before the long weekend, and early that Friday morning Shannon decided to take a home pregnancy test. They were heading away and she wanted to do a quick check before indulging in some wine during their getaway. I peed on the stick, put it on the sink in the bathroom and just went back to sleep and forgot about it. When I woke up and saw the 2 lines, I was in shock. I quickly woke Carl up and said, "I think I'm pregnant." Of course he had no idea what was going on, half asleep and not knowing that I actually did a test. Shannon tried to be pragmatic about it and decided to take another test the next morning. Safe to say, no wine was consumed that weekend as the test returned another positive result. The gorgeous baby Wren was finally born on the 19th of February, 2024. Looking back, I wish I had pushed harder with the medical professionals to help diagnose my PCOS. At least I would have had more knowledge earlier and been able to plan things differently. The experience affects women like Shannon deeply. What many people don't consider is that it's not just the clinical aspect. At the age where lots of friends are having babies, she started to get anxious about meeting up with friends or scrolling through social media. Relationships were impacted. Shannon was always wondering how she would respond to hearing about pregnancy or birth announcements. After seeing a psychologist who specialized in infertility, it helped her come to terms with her feelings and gave her the tools to help better manage conversations and challenging situations. I'm so glad we're out the other side, but I also think it's so important to make sure women know they're not alone. There are other women out there who have walked this road. I would say go and see a doctor that they trust, talk about anything they may be concerned about, and if they don't get the answer they want, keep pushing for it. Shannon is celebrating her first long-awaited Mother's Day this year, and Carl has organized a surprise event with the couple who they met through at the engagement party back in 2017. It feels like they've come full circle and are exactly where they're meant to be. How long does it take to fall in love with someone? You may have seen the adorable audio of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce saying that they love each other after his team made the Super Bowl and swooned. While we don't know exactly what was said, fans think the exchange went a little like this. Travis: "I love you so much it's not even funny." Taylor: "I've never been so proud of anyone, ever." The pair started seeing each other after Swift performed at Arrowhead Stadium in July 2023. If they got together soon after that, they have been together for 6 months before saying "I love you." It had many fans wondering how the relationship got so serious, so quickly. How long does it take to fall in love with someone? And is it true that it's faster as an adult? People talk about love at first sight or the kind of love you want to grow old with, but what does it all mean? We spoke to the relationship experts and consulted the endless scientific studies on love to find out. How long does it take to fall in love? Movies and films are obsessed with the idea of love at first sight. In The Notebook, Noah meets Ally at a carnival and jumps onto a Ferris wheel without a seat because he had to be next to her. Romeo and Juliet fall in love the moment they meet, Act 2, Scene 2, with Romeo saying Juliet is the sun. Interestingly, there is some research to back up the idea. A 2010 study found that the brain is capable of setting off messages of passionate love within 1/5 of a second of encountering someone. A 2006 study found that attractiveness is assessed within 1/10 of a second. Essentially, you might not have the kind of life-altering love that families and decisions are built on in 1 minute, but we are capable of telling if someone has that thing we're looking for very quickly. What about that declaration though? As Gossip Girl's Blair begs Chuck to say, 3 words, 8 letters, say it, and I'm yours. Those words mean a lot to us, and we tend to try and hold them back until we can be sure we mean them. A study from Match found that it takes approximately 4.5 months for I love you to be declared, on average. However, that number differs between men and women. The question remains, should we say I love you the minute it occurs to us? According to relationship coach and Boy Detox founder Jess Matthews, it's important to really think about what those words mean and the impact they can have. Love is a feeling driven by intense emotions, and whilst I'd never suggest disregarding your feelings, be cautious and take your time, she explains. It's beneficial to understand the why behind the feelings and gauging your potential partner's intention via time and observation of their words and actions. Who falls in love first? While it's easy to think of women as romantics, they're actually pretty savvy when it comes to falling in love. Research shows that it tends to be men who fall quick and hard. A 2011 study found that men express their love sooner on average, thinking about saying I love you within 97.3 days. However, women took 138 days to consider it. Once the thinking was done, it was also more likely for men to say it first. There has not been as much research done in LGBT+ couples, unfortunately, but a 2008 study found that lesbians report an average of 6 months before sharing those 3 little words. Why do men fall hard and fast? Matthews says that while we need to take the research in context with societal differences, education, cultural background, and peer influence in consideration, the science doesn't lie. It turns out that evolution and brain chemistry play a major role in men's romantic feelings. Men's emotional responses are triggered by female pheromones and cause the high of infatuation. As a result of attraction and sex, the brain releases a powerful combination of dopamine, norepinephrine, phenylethylamine, and oxytocin, which is responsible for feelings of attachment, lust, and lowered inhibitions, she says. Men are more visually driven, meaning when they find someone attractive and feel a connection with them, they're less likely to remain cautious and continue to critically assess their feelings and look for flaws in the same way that women might. She also says that men tend to open up about their romantic feelings and authentic selves once they feel comfortable and are assured that they are making their partner happy. Do love timelines change as we age? When you're young and dating, couples can be together for years before finally making life commitments like marriage and children. However, with increasing age, couples can be dancing up the aisle sooner. Matthews says that, in theory, falling in love should take less time as an adult, but that's assuming we are aware of what we need and want, how to communicate, and are able to take accountability for our flaws. It's not always the case though, and many of us fall prey to the societal pressure of coupling up as we are confronted by aging and are therefore more likely to speed through the process. How to find love? As a dating and relationships coach, Matthews specializes in helping people find their special someone. She says it's important to place those overwhelming feelings of love and emotion in context with the rest of the relationship. Both men and women should consider the effect of chemistry on them when pursuing new connections. The hormones released by the brain when we are attracted to, or become physically intimate with someone new, are powerful and have the potential to lead us astray, she says. The side effect of this is lowered inhibitions and an overall inability to rationally assess compatibility. Compatibility is what will ensure a harmonious long-term relationship when chemistry does eventually fade. I'm 32 and my friends are starting to separate. Is this our divorce era? Most people will attest there is something of a marriage era. Starting around your mid to late 20s and lasting at least a few years, it's a period during which more weekends than not are dedicated to celebrating people's family milestones. Engagement parties, hens nights, weddings, baby showers, heaven forbid, gender reveal parties. Life becomes defined by this endless parade of benchmark celebrations. Now, at the age of 32, I'm starting to notice a new milestone trend. I'm calling it the divorce era. I first noticed it on my dating apps. More once-married men were popping up, a fact I'd learn on the first date, if it wasn't already obvious by their profile. Even men who weren't technically ever married, and thus not technically divorced, were exiting long-term relationships, with kids, houses, or pets to share. Then, in the first few months of this year, not one, but two of my close friends separated from their long-term partners. While two does not make a trend, I don't have that many close friends, so, percentage-wise, it's huge. And thus I wondered, is this a thing? Just as I watched my friends partner up within the space of a handful of years, am I now going to watch them separate within a similarly brief time frame? Statistically, it could be true. When you look at Australian divorce statistics, an overwhelming number of separations occur within the first 9 years of marriage. In fact, of all divorces recorded, a whopping 56% of couples called it quits within that first 9 years, with an average time frame of marriage to separation only 8.7 years. A further 26% of couples split within 10 to 19 years, while just 15% of couples call it quits after 20 years. In other words, more than half of all marriages that end in divorce end within that first decade. On top of that, AIFS researcher Dr. Lixia Chu confirms that the age bracket with the greatest percentage of divorces is 35 to 39. So, while my friends separating in their early 30s might be a little off the mark, perhaps we are indeed collectively heading into our divorce era in a matter of years. And, actually, it takes an average of around 3 years for a divorce to be settled, so, perhaps my pals are right on time. While we don't have the same data for cohabitating partnerships, the Australian Institute of Family Studies, AIFS, concludes it is even more likely for couples to separate if they never got married. So, the next obvious question is, why? Why this specific time frame? Why this age? Is it finance? Is it kids? Or is it the inevitable demise of romance? Investigating the 7-year itch. When pondering these statistics, particularly the 8.7-year separation average, one can't help but immediately recall the 7-year itch. Ever since Marilyn Monroe donned a flowy, white dress and stood over a subway grate, folks have debated whether the idea of a 7-year itch was based in fiction or fact. The phrase refers to the approximate time period in a relationship where the honeymoon phase has well and truly worn off, and reality comes knocking. It's when you and your partner settle into the humdrum of life together, leading many to wonder if the relationship will continue to satisfy their desires. Looking at the statistics, this theory of a 7-year itch or, technically, 8.7-year itch may have some legs. The research shows that the 7-year itch is generally when couples become immersed in raising children, paying off the mortgage and being responsible. They lose sight of themselves as a couple and as individuals, and this is when people jump out of relationships and into new ones, divorce lawyer Cassandra Kalpaxis tells Marie Claire Australia. It's the thrill and the attention of being valued and appreciated again for who they are and not their label. Relationships Australia CEO and clinical psychologist Elizabeth Shaw agreed that the early years of relationships are typically focused around shared goals, a needle which can shift after some, or all, of these goals are achieved. In the first years of a relationship, there are many exciting and bonding challenges to face, such as moving into your first home, career progression, saving for a property, all of which are highly romantic, take time, and are focused on common goals and aspirations, she says. If there is not a time imperative to have children, this can also be a period of enjoying double income, travel, and connection with friends. Once this ongoing period of novelty peters out, many start to take stock of their relationship, especially when the conversation turns to having children, or not. There could be differences about wanting children, or career opportunities that have taken off that challenge their picture of their future. For example, one person receives an offer to work overseas. Elizabeth offers. 9 years is enough time to know each other well, but also to have had the early romance settle into what the future might look like. If couples have got together early and face relationship uncertainty, they might also see that repartnering is possible, if they call it early enough. Why are people getting divorced? While Australia upholds no-fault divorces, i.e. our courts do not consider the reason a marriage has ended when granting divorce, separate research suggests domestic violence or abuse is the main reason people get divorced. Another common reason? Communication issues. This covers a wide range of issues such as difficulty seeing each other's point of view, conflict management, poor styles of discussion, not being able to get through to each other and be heard, Elizabeth explains. Beyond this, infidelity, substance abuse, financial issues and parenting conflicts are also key reported reasons. What's age got to do with it? AIFS researcher Dr. Lixia Chu confirms there is evidence that marrying at a younger age is associated with a higher likelihood of divorce. And while the median age of divorce for people in Australia is 45.9 for men and 43 for women, given that the 35 to 39 age bracket contains the most divorces, it could be the 7-year itch striking those who've married young, or around the median ages of 30.8, men, and 29.4, women. Elizabeth also suggests that younger people might be more inclined to split given their assumed years ahead. Without the social imperative to stay together against all odds, which used to be expected, people who are unhappy and still young are more likely to call it with the chance to move on, than a couple in their 70s for example, because there is often a desire to find happiness elsewhere, she says. While the divorce era might sound daunting to some, there is some good news. Most Australian marriages don't end in divorce at all. Sure, the divorce rate might be 48%, but are you a glass half full or empty person? Same-sex couples have heterosexual couples beat when it comes to divorce rates, with just 2.5% of same-sex couples splitting up. However, given same-sex marriage was only legalized in 2017, and divorce rates have only been recorded since 2021, it might be a little early to start reading too deeply into these figures. And while there's no denying divorces and breakups are taxing on the individuals and families involved, it bears repeating that leaving an unhappy partnership is never a bad thing. To the contrary, in fact. If Diane Lane, Julia Roberts, and the ladies of the First Wives Club have taught me anything, it's that divorce certainly agrees with some, especially when we can eat, pray, love our way back to happiness and into a multi-million-dollar memoir. This is the real reason why men cheat. Like many of us, I thought cheaters participated in cheating as a way out of their marriage. I assumed cheating was mate shopping for their next partner. Why else would they seek another partner given the expense, stress of lying, and time involved? As most public cheating scandals go, a person, usually a man, feels dissatisfied in their long-term marriage or relationship, so they cheat, get caught, and get their way out. It wasn't until a few years ago that I discovered a new perspective: cheating in order to commit to a marriage. Why men cheat, what the research says. After recognizing a lack of academic research on this topic, I decided to gather my own data to learn what cheaters actually hope to accomplish by stepping outside of their marriage. I contacted Ashley Madison, the controversial married dating site that's seen 70 million members join since its launch in 2002. With their help, I spoke with nearly 100 self-identified cheaters and learned firsthand how much gray area exists when it comes to infidelity. I also learned how wrong all those common-sense ideas about cheating really are. My conversations with Ashley Madison members have produced 2 books, detailing the behaviors and rationales of both female and male cheaters, which, for the most part, go against what we typically believe to be true. Where a lack of sexual satisfaction at home motivates women to seek out affairs, men seek the emotional connection and support they believe their spouse neglects to provide. I address the latter in my latest endeavor, Chasing Masculinity, Men, Validation, and Infidelity, which reveals the surprising truth about male infidelity, and flips the script when it comes to what we think motivates men to cheat. For this research, I spoke to 46 men ranging from 27 to 70 years of age, all either married or partnered, and all very eager to share their experience with me. While these men report a fondness and deep love for their spouse, they also report insecurity, a very low or non-existent amount of validation, and an inadequate amount of attention and praise from her. Without speaking to these men's wives, it's impossible to know whether they intentionally withheld praise, attention, and relational management, as the men claim. Perhaps an inequality of the division of household labor resulted in some long-held resentment on the part of their wives. Possibly it's simply that household chores and childcare dominated their wives' time and energy, leaving nothing left for their husbands. Regardless, these men internalized the dynamics in those relationships as a condemnation of them and their masculinity. Their decision to cheat comes from the desire to experience the love and affection they expect to receive from their wife, but has faded over time. After years of enduring those unmet needs, infidelity became a way for them to be doted on while not having to give up a partnership that still means the world to them. What does sex have to do with cheating? Sex naturally plays a role in the decision as well, as 76% of the men in this sample report being in a sexless marriage. However, where their own orgasms and sexual pleasure motivated women, hearing praise for their sexual prowess made men feel worthy and manly. To them, their wives treat sex as a chore and lack all enthusiasm about it. Men internalize that disinterest as, "I'm not good enough and I'm a disappointment." They feel undervalued not only as a sexual partner, but as a person. Their outside partners function as the person to whom they go for flirting, and that praise and recognition. And more often than not, just one monogamous affair partner is all they need. That is not to say, though, that the decision to cheat functioned as the first step men took when they were hurting in their marriage. In fact, these men spent years speaking to their spouse about what was and wasn't working for them, and asking how they could improve, but weren't given a substantial answer, or much acknowledgement, in many cases. What case studies have said? Articulating that feeling of underappreciation and asking, "Why aren't you interested in me anymore?" can be a very hard thing to do. And when you pass that hurdle and then face a spouse who simply turns a blind eye, is the next step to file for divorce and upend your life? That's not an option for many people, whether it be financial restraints, children, or knowing it's not worth it to end a marriage over one missing component. As one participant told me, I decided my marriage had too many great things about it to end things because of the lack of intimacy. A total disinterest in changing their home life exists as a common understanding between affair partners. That is, they prefer the life they share with their spouse. As I mentioned, these men carry a deep love for their wife, and 96% of them have absolutely no interest in leaving the marriage. One participant says, "My outside partner and I know that we do not desire a change in our primary partners. We are not in love. We enjoy each other, thank each other, and go back to our lives. My wife is my best friend. I enjoy her immensely. Our personalities match well. Our goals are well aligned, as I believe are the goals of my outside partner." These men were in real pain before they decided to cheat, both from the neglect they were facing and the realization that the reality of marriage didn't line up with their expectations. For many, part of that pain persists knowing that the woman who's now satisfying their needs isn't the one woman they ultimately want that satisfaction from, their wife. Would these men be happiest with just their wife? Contrary to the common men can't resist temptation narrative, yes, they would be. Most men actually enjoy monogamy and are often far less interested in the idea of an open marriage than women are. But circumstances change and reality sets in. Infidelity works as a viable path for them to preserve their happiness and ultimately their marriage. It's not, as many assume, necessarily for revenge. During the process of putting Chasing Masculinity together, people constantly told me, "I can tell you right now why men cheat, you don't have to write a book about it." As it turns out, I did. If I hadn't, the unfortunate perception we have of men, specifically cheating men, may not have been adequately questioned and challenged. How to break up with someone you love. Question: how do you break up with someone you love? Answer: be sure, be kind, be honest, be sincere, and give the relationship and your significant other the respect they deserve. The more personal you are, the more respect they feel. You might think that being dumped is the worst feeling in the world, and many would agree with you. However, the pressure and stress of instigating a breakup, and doing it the right way, is almost as bad. And, while there is no exact science to mastering a breakup, we've taken on the role of a relationship coach and will walk you through the best-case scenario. To make sure you are breaking up with someone as fairly as possible, make sure you're honest. While you might want to get it done and dusted by simply saying, "It's over," that's never fair on the other person. You owe it to your significant other, who you've likely been in a long-term relationship with, to explain why. This doesn't mean barraging them with every negative thought you've ever had about them. Remember, they had to have some good qualities. It's simply giving them something that they can take away, think about, and to some extent process the whole thing. It's also important to be sure of what you're doing and saying when you break up with someone. There's no time for second thoughts. That will just increase the emotional damage to all involved. When emotions are involved, as is the case in any relationship, it's not a game and your decision can't be a rushed one. Related, 11 signs you're overdue for a breakup. Finally, expect a reaction. Always remember that while you've had time to think and process this, for the other person this could be completely out of the blue and they could be in complete shock. There may be crying, screaming, shouting, outright laughing or dead silence, but whatever it is, it should be expected. After you've decided on the words, it's important to consider the delivery. Today, breakups run the risk of becoming impersonal, with people opting for text messages, voice messages, and social media outlets such as Instagram and Facebook to get their not-so-loving message across. But is this the right thing to do? The problem with something in writing, a breakup text, breakup poem, breakup letter, or breakup message, is that it can often be interpreted as cold and uncaring. It also is a one-way method of communication, allowing only one party to disclose the information they deem relevant. It doesn't allow your significant other, to ask questions, fully understand the reasons behind the breakup, or be in a position to express their feelings. Of course they can write back, however, it's not the same as being there in person. Especially considering that even at the best of times, a breakup not being one of those times, a person's feelings can easily get lost in translation. This increases the likelihood of your feeling that you are being rude, cold, and disrespectful. Naturally, in situations where feelings may not have completely developed, you've only been on the one date, a short and concise text along the lines of, "Thank you for a great night, but I don't feel that there was an emotional connection" would be considered a respectful means to ending the relationship, sans ghosting. A similar message sent to your partner of 15 years for the dissolution of the romantic relationship would not be as respectful. In fact, in this situation, breaking up over the phone or by written communication simply shows you are evading the other person and the reality of the breakup. So, how to break up with someone you love? In short, there is no one-size-fits-all approach and there isn't a manual to read. It's simply recommended that couples in long-term relationships should break up in personal face-to-face settings, preferably in private, at home, or if you live separately then at their home, so that they are most comfortable in their surroundings, to allow for the exertion of emotions and a conversation away from prying eyes and ears. While those in a long-distance long-term relationships could revert to their primary method of communication to deliver the breakup message. FaceTime or Skype calls are preferable, and technically still considered face-to-face, or at the very least a telephone call. If you're in a brand new relationship, then a short quick text message can do the trick. The key to determining the best way to break up with someone depends on the seriousness and longevity of that relationship. Long-term relationships require more personal, face-to-face, conversation, whereas relationships that are just starting out can be ended by way of a phone call or a short message. Just remember, the more personal the approach, the more kind and sincere you will appear, and therefore the less pain you are likely to cause. It's times like these when we need to refer to the holy grail of relationships and breakups, sex and the city, of course. As we drive along this road called life, occasionally a gal will find herself a little lost. And when that happens, I guess she has to let go of the coulda, shoulda, woulda, buckle up and just keep going. Put simply, there's never really a good time to break up with someone. It's rarely an issue of timing, more so when the time is right, or up, for you. Some advice: just rip the band-aid off. No one's saying this is an easy decision to make, and it's not one you make over a 5-minute coffee break. Here are a few quick questions to ask yourself when deciding if it's time to call it quits. 1. Are you happy? 2. Are you doubting your future, your partner, or the relationship? 3. Are you feeling a build-up of insecurities within yourself? 4. Do you regret being in this relationship? 5. Do you find yourself wondering about what else is out there for you and whether that could be what you've always been waiting for? 6. Are your family members and/or friends telling you to get the hell out of there? 7. Have you sat down and weighed the pros and cons only to find you're struggling to find any pros? 8. Are the disagreements becoming more frequent? 9. Has there been a deterioration of the connection and communication? If you're finding that you are answering yes to some or all of these questions, it might be time to reevaluate your relationship. There's no point staying in a relationship just because it's Christmas or to avoid the difficult conversations. Just take great care in how are you going about it, and remember, if you have mutual friends, chances are you'll be seeing them again. You're single, what now? While the actual breakup conversation is hard, the period that follows the breakup is equally as hard and confusing. The chances are you've lived with this person or been married to them. Regardless, they were a significant part of your life, and while it may have been your choice to end things, once it's done there's a void that needs to be filled. Here are a few handy tips and tricks to get you through those first few weeks. 1. Mourn the relationship. If you need to cry, stay in bed, mope around in your PJs, listen to breakup tunes, here's a link to get you to the 32 best breakup songs. You're welcome, and eat all the ice cream you can find at your local Woolies then D. But limit yourself to 2 days of this. After all, remember there was something that led you to make the decision to break up with your boy or girl. 2. Surround yourself with friends. You've done your crying and your moping, now it's time to have a shower, do your hair and your makeup. Boys, this is optional, and get in contact with your besties. Plan a spa day, go out for brunch, or have a boys' night. Basically, the activity doesn't matter, just get out of the house, keep busy and do things you enjoy. 3. Start exercising. This doesn't need to be the gym. Exercising can be one of the best medicines for a broken or damaged heart. There's nothing like a good rush of endorphins to boost your mood and help soothe the pain. This would be an excellent activity to do with friends and could be as simple as going on a coastal walk or doing a yoga, Zumba, or spin class. 4. Overhaul your image. While the end of a relationship, particularly one that has been long-term, can be a painful conclusion to something that was once beautiful, it's also the beginning of something new and exciting. So why not change up your hairstyle? It's amazing how fresh a small trim or big chop can make you feel. Or throw out the 10 oldest items in your wardrobe and spoil yourself with a few new wardrobe additions to help you feel your best while out with friends. Whether the change is big or small, make sure it's a change that'll excite you and that you're bound to notice every day. For the lucky few out there who realize this was the best decision they've ever made from the outset, stand by and let the rest of us catch up.